We're here today at the Montclair Film Festival and we're interviewing people about this wonderful recycled art. So let me turn you over to the artists.
Hi, my name is Debbie Harner. I'm an art teacher at the Montclair Cooperative School, and I now define myself as an art activist.
Hi, I'm Judd Harner. I'm her husband, and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of Swell.
Great. So why don't you tell me a little bit about how this idea started?
So I wanted to teach my 7th grade about art activism, and we picked the issue of climate, and we also talked a lot about the environment. The kids, for them, they're not separate. So as we were having our conversations and trying to figure out what we wanted to do, I did think of the water bottle as something that is a tangible object that they could recognize and have some connection with. And it's just this vernacular thing that it's in our everyday life, and at the same time we don't realize just it's made of oil, and you just don't realize that. And so we decided to use that object to represent. This piece is a conceptual piece that part of it represents air and part of it represents the ocean. The 1/3 bottom where we have the twisted single-use plastic bags, again made of petroleum, represents the ocean, and the twisted rope is, for me, reminds me of on a fisherman's boat, or all the things that the netting and the lines and all these things get caught up in the ocean now, and the marine life get caught in it, and so that's kind of representative of that. And then the bottles themselves, because of the reflective quality, it's just so beautiful that it kind of captures the light, and it really, to me, it kind of represents the air.
Can you tell us a little bit about where the recyclables came from? Were you collecting them for weeks on end, or how did they come to be this large?
So I did worked with my 7th graders at the co-op to make the prototype. But I do have a friend of mine, an alum parent from the co-op, she's a producer at the Years of Living Dangerously, and she thought it would be wonderful to try to partner up and to connect the movie, to connect their documentaries, and also I thought I had partnered up with the Montclair Film last year, and so I called Sue Hollenberg, who's the Director of Education, and all three of us kind of sat down and we all talked about how we were going to move forward to bring this program to a wider audience. So we decided to bring it to the Montclair High School, and we worked with the small learning communities, the CGI and CSJ and STEM and some of the science classes. And what we asked the kids to do, we did come in, and they ended up watching Collapse of the Oceans, and they were able to talk to the director and producer of that film, and also a leading marine biologist, Dr. Ayanna Johnson. And from there, now that we kind of got them all revved up, we asked them to start collecting the bottles and the bags and any sort of plastic things that they can find. And that's kind of how we started. And then some of the kids who were more involved ended up, as we were calling it dumpster diving. We were going into the back of the high school and grabbing from their recycle bin, the bottles. And so most of these did come from the Montclair High School, but some also came from the co-op and from the community.
Good, great. And how many bottles are there?
Well, yeah, it's interesting. So if you take a look at it, it's a lot of bottles, and it took a lot of time, but that's about 1,200 bottles. And what's sort of shocking about this is that 1,200 bottles represents what 7 people will do in a year, and that's just plastic water bottles. It's not juice bottles, it's not soda bottles, it's just water bottles. So a lot of people don't know this, but in America, we go through 50 billion, not million, billion plastic water bottles, and 40 billion are not recycled, which means they're in landfill. Or the ocean, which takes somewhere, it depends who you talk to, 400 to 1,000 years to biodegrade enough to go into the soil, so you don't know it's there, so we can plant in it. So this is a massive problem that not a lot of people know about yet.
So obviously one of the answers is to reduce your usage.
Yes.
Number one. I've seen other statistics talking about there will be as many bottles in the ocean as there are fish by 2050.
Yeah, it's actually worse than that. It's tonnage. So all plastic will outweigh all the fish in the ocean. So this is not a problem that can be reduced by cleanup. It can't be reduced by recycling because we'll never get to those numbers. So unless we stop, We have a huge problem that is not only in the ocean, becoming and photodegrading into particles that fish are ingesting, washing on shore. Countries that are shore countries plant there. We get our crops from there, bananas, things. Those are growing literally in soil made of plastic. And so unless we stop, we've got a problem that we can't stop.
Exactly.
And I would like to just add, this climate partnership is what we're calling it, is actually growing. We've already, just last week, Sue invited other schools to come, and the film festival is such a wonderful way to expose students to and use incredible documentary films to educate our community. So they were able to see the Bill Nye movie just recently, and again we were showing the collapse of the oceans. And I think we were doing the math. I think between the program that we did at the high school and then having the kids come again and then other kids from other schools, we reached about 1,000 students, and that's just this year. And now we're moving on, and we're gonna continue this conversation with other schools out in our community, and we're excited to do it.
Okay. I'm Olivia, and we all. I forget. I'm Juniper. We just took the bottles and we made holes in them, and then so that we could tie them together and braided plastic bags for the bottom. I'm Sophie, and yeah, what she said.
Great. So has this changed you at all in terms of what you're using to drink with on a daily basis?
I usually don't use plastic water bottles anyway, so I use reusable water bottles all the time.
Reusable. And you too?
And it's good to use like disposable plastic, or not disposable, real plastic bags that you can use again.
Right. The jellyfish plastic art above us.
So as the kids were making the wall here, this air-water conceptual piece, we had another station where kids were able to be more creative with the plastic. And one of our local artists, Sofia Bakravova, she is actually an alum parent from the Montclair Cooperative School, and she was there helping out at the workshop, and she started just kind of leading the way of creating these jellyfish-inspired sea creatures. And that's what's kind of hovering above us right now, floating as the wind is kind of blowing. It just looks like they're swimming amongst the bottles. So that's kind of what that is. And again, it's all single-use plastic bags and laundry bags and the six-pack bottle rings and all the different plastics, again, that were gathered and collected.
So you probably have all the plastics, numbers 1 through 7 here
Yeah.
represented.
And the entire thing is made of plastic, so the idea is once it is no longer, we're hoping that it's going to travel and move from place to place. Once that ends, we can just kind of cut it apart and it can be recycled. It is all made of plastic.
Great, wonderful. So the topic is waste, and what we're going to be talking about first is what we can do to keep items out of the waste stream. So we want to talk about reuse and reducing and then recycling.
Okay, so all three of those, reducing, reusing, and recycling, are part of a waste prevention or waste diversion idea, and all of those are with the intent of making less garbage. And the reason that towns want to make less garbage is because disposal of garbage is very expensive. It costs a lot of money to not just collect the garbage, but particularly to dispose of it. And we spend about $85 a ton, and Montclair generates between 10 and 15,000 tons of garbage every year, so that really adds up. So anything we can do to make less garbage is a really positive thing. Reducing simply means not buying too much stuff, or not buying stuff that we really don't need, not accumulating stuff that we can't use. And reusing simply means that some items, once they've been used once, might be able to be used again, whether it's a container that you can repurpose and use over and over again, or materials like textiles, or even an old bicycle that might have another life. Those both keep stuff out of the garbage, and that's a positive thing. And recycling, well, that's what we're going to go into today.
Great. Okay, so in terms of the curbside pickups in Montclair, do you want to talk a little bit about what can be brought to the curb?
Sure. So Montclair collects a wide variety of materials from the homes, including recyclables and refuse or garbage. also yard waste and bulky waste, and also household appliances. But let's talk about recycling, because I think that's really what most people have the most questions about. And we have two streams in Montclair of two categories of recyclables. One is mixed paper. Paper, basically that's your newspapers, magazines, catalogs, any office paper, any junk mail, a wide variety of paper that is actually very valuable to the town. That can all go mixed together in one container at the curb every week on your scheduled recycling day. And the other category, the other stream, is what we call commingled, and that's the metal, glass, and plastic bottles and cans that come from our homes. So those are your two categories. They have to be in two separate containers, and they can both be brought on the same day down to the curb for collection.
Great. So we have put together a variety of items on the table that you'll see momentarily. So we're going to walk through these items because these are decisions that each of you have to make usually on a daily basis about where does this stuff go. But maybe one quick question first about in terms of incineration or what happens, the pathway of the stuff from the curb out.
You mean the garbage, the refuse?
Yes.
So refuse that's collected in Montclair, along with all refuse in Essex County, it does not go to a landfill, which is where most garbage in America goes to. 80% of garbage in America goes to a landfill. But in Essex County, including Montclair, we bring our garbage to a mass burn garbage incinerator, a resource recovery facility, which is in the Ironbound section of Newark. And there we tip our garbage, our solid waste, our refuse as we call it. And again, it's expensive. But that's where it ends up, and there it is, it's incinerated. And they do generate some electricity at that resource recovery facility.
Great. Thank you so much. And now we'll go to the table. Okay, so now we are looking at some objects that we think might be appropriate to put in paper, different types of paper. So what do we have here? First, it is something for wrapping fish, and it is paper, but...
Absolutely. But if you look a little more closely, you'll see that it has a wax liner inside. So this should be thrown in the trash.
This goes in the trash. Great. Okay, now here's some cardboard, and how about this?
And this is fine. This we can recycle. You put this in with your mixed papers.
Perfect. Okay. And then how about this foil?
No, the foil we cannot recycle.
So it also goes in
Goes in the
regular
trash.
garbage?
Goes in
Okay.
the trash.
Okay. And here is also cardboard, but it has a little plastic window.
Right. Well, I would remove the plastic window on it and recycle the paper.
Okay, remove the window first.
Right.
Great. And should we be flattening these? We can't
Yes,
just...
absolutely. Absolutely.
That's important.
You want to maximize the size containers that you have, that you're actually using. So if you lift them all together, it would take up a lot more space.
And it won't weigh as much, and so we don't
Right.
get as much money back from
Right,
recycling.
Right.
Okay, and the bag?
Plastic paper bag is fine.
Okay, so that can go in the paper. Now we have a shiny magazine here. What about that?
This
Parts
is
of it's
fine.
shiny.
It's a coated magazine. This is fine.
Okay.
You can recycle that in the paper.
And since this is July, we're out of school, so a lot of people are throwing away school items.
Right.
No longer needed.
Well, something like this binding is not recyclable. So if you want to go through the effort, and I would think it's worth it, just rip the pages out and throw the binding out.
Okay. And newspapers, we know can
Newspapers
go
are
in. Okay. And so now this is sort of foil.
Yeah, it is definitely a foil product, and we cannot recycle that.
Okay, not. Okay. And how about the egg
Egg
carton?
cartons are fine. As a matter of fact, these egg cartons were actually made out of the newsprint.
Ah, perfect. Great. Thank you. Okay, so that is the paper pile. So now let's move on to environmentalist hot button topics, plastic. Okay, so now, how about these items?
These items, okay, along with the plastic bags, I would bring those all back to your local supermarket, and these can be recycled.
Great. And we're fortunate in Montclair, we have a variety of grocery stores that accept recycled, or bags for recycling, including Whole Foods, ShopRite, and Acme and King's. So everyone does that. Okay, how about some of these other items? Now, of course, plastic, you've heard people talk about numbers on plastic. So could you say something a little bit about
Okay.
the type of numbers?
First thing that you're looking for, you'll look for the little triangle, and inside that little triangle will be a number. And this one happens to be a number 5, polypropylene. Now, can't put it in the curbside, but you can bring it back to, I believe, Whole Foods. So bring it back to the Whole Foods market.
It needs to be
It
cleaned.
needs to be cleaned out. I can't make out the cap. I don't know if you can make out that number on the cap.
Let's see. No, I can't. It might have a
Well,
combination number,
Yeah,
like
if
we...
it could, it looks like it has 2 numbers on it.
Yes, 5 and 7.
If it's got a 5 in it, if it's got 2 numbers on it, it's a hybrid type of plastic and it cannot be recycled.
Okay, so in other
So
words,
throw the cap out,
throw the cap out?
recycle the container itself.
Great. And these are more foils, so
Right.
they,
These go in the trash.
and the trash. Okay, and now, how about sleeves like
Yeah,
this?
like for greeting cards or something like
Exactly.
that. These are not identified by any number, so, be on the safe side and throw it in the trash.
Trash, okay. So when in doubt, throw it in the trash. Okay, so now we have another container here, and it says that it's a 2.
It is a 2. Well, this could be recycled if it was this clean, okay? But you would have to go through a little more effort to get all this out of here.
And on the back side, it has a label, I
Yeah.
think.
The label, it would not really be a problem. It's this other type of cellophane or whatever is on top here.
Okay, so we'll clean it again, and then,
This is probably a number 2 also, right? Okay, this is number 1, PET, this is recyclable.
great. And then how about these sort of packing items?
Well, the bubble wrap could not be mixed with the bags. Either could this item. This cannot be mixed in with the bags. But this bag could be mixed in with your supermarket bags, your shopping bags,
Okay.
and brought back to the local supermarket.
Okay, so we can put those over here. And how about these items?
Wax paper cannot be recycled. And this could not be recycled either.
Okay. And I did want to mention that Gray has put on the website a list of items from A to Z, that if you have any question about them, then you can actually look it up by the actual name. And so that will tell you in which container it might be able to go. So now, since we've been talking about plastics, we've got our other unfavorite, which is styrofoam. What
Right.
can we do with this?
This cannot be put in any type of curbside situation that I know of. So this would go in the trash.
It's on the other side, I think.
I'm looking at it.
Number 1.
Number 1. Number 1 can be recycled.
Okay. And now we have some other objects, and of course they have caps.
Right.
Now, you mentioned the scanner when we were discussing the process before. Are these big enough to be picked up by the scanner?
No. And so even if they had a number on them and they were this size, you just throw this in the trash. Throw this in the trash. This is going to be a number 1. This can be recycled in the commingle along with the Wesson oil, which could be a number 1 or a number 2. But
Ray, you had made some comments before about food contamination and food container contaminations, even though they look like they might be appropriate to be recycled. Are they or are they not?
Well, the material may be perfectly recyclable, but we do want to make sure that there's no contamination of the material, which would impede the recyclability. So with this aluminum can, the can's very valuable. We want to make sure we can recycle that, but we want to make sure that the can is empty. You don't have to scrub this out. You don't have to use soap suds to make sure it's pristine, but you want to make sure that it's empty. And with this container as well, this is a number 6, so this yogurt container is not a recyclable item. But if it were a number 5 that you can't put in our curbside recycling in Montclair, but you could bring to a supermarket, specifically Whole Foods, But even this, you would want to make sure was rinsed out and not that there's no dairy product clinging to the material. And finally, with a generic Chinese food container, this is really not going to be recyclable because the food has contaminated the paper. There is a little bit of metal that if you want to take the time to pull that off, but that doesn't go into our curbside recycling. You could bring this down to the Public Works yard with a bunch of other metal or scrap metal, because it is clean scrap metal, if you didn't want to throw it away. But generally, the item is not recyclable with curbside.
Okay, I have another question for you. Sometimes you might be buying a wine that is not manufactured here in the United States. It might be from a foreign place. Now, while there are numbers for plastics, we don't really have to worry about that for glass in terms
Correct.
of the numbers,
Correct.
correct?
All glass is recyclable with our recycling vendor.
Okay, and now here are two corks,
Yeah.
but in fact, one of them is cork the material,
Mm-hmm.
and this one, though, I
Is
believe,
plastic.
is wax.
Right, so cork materials made from cork can be recycled at Whole Foods. They have a separate container for cork. Cork is a highly recyclable material. The plastic corks are not recyclable and they're garbage.
So Fred has told us in terms of scanning the recyclables, if things are too small, they should really just go into the trash. So that includes these, and I imagine that would include the Keurigs as well.
Absolutely, yep, this is a cap for a milk container, that's garbage, and this disposable creamer is also just garbage.
Great. And how about these? We want to keep these out of the ocean and the lakes, but there's probably a better place for them.
Right, well, they should go to the garbage, they will be burned, but you may, if it was going into an outdoor container, I would actually pull the straps apart just to make sure that that it didn't get into the oceans and didn't strangle a wildlife.
Okay, and how about cosmetics and a lot of the packaging we do? When we were talking before, Walter had mentioned that it's really important if you could actually bring your mug rather than
Yeah.
actually having a disposable item.
Yeah.
And it seems like that this is a dual item. It's both paper and plastic.
That's right.
But it is minimum packaging, and that's really one of the points too in terms of how you can select things that will be less problematic in the waste stream.
Yeah, and absolutely, and this is a great example that if you just took an extra second, and if you wanted to pull the plastic away from the paper, then the paper is a recyclable product. You can put that in curbside, and the plastic part gets thrown away.
Okay, and so now we have some laundry items. So what would we do with this?
This is highly recyclable. I might pull both caps off and discard them, but if you can crush that, it's okay. But basically, this is a number 2, and all laundry containers are recyclable with our curbside collection.
Great. Our second guest this morning is Fred Petrone, and he is with Atlantic Fibers, and he is our recycler. So he's going to tell us a little bit about what happens once the recycling goes from our trucks to his facility. Fred?
Okay, so most people don't realize that it'll come to our facility, but what we do is we actually sort through the material, through different commodities, and we prepare it for conversion into different products. So in other words, when the paper side comes in, all the paper gets prepared. We take the newsprint, and we separate the brown grades, the corrugated boxes, the chipboard type of tissue boxes. We'll separate other items, the brown paper bags. We take those items out. We separate it, we'll make 2 grades of material out of that. You call it mixed paper here, but we have to separate that again. The newsprint is made out of, we'll make another newsprint type of item, or it could be used for other types of items as a filler grade for the converters. Now, the other side of that, on the other side of our building, the truck approaches, and I have to mention that they go over a scale where we weigh every single item, where an electronic scale ticket is provided to the driver as he delivers the material, and then we dump out the material, and the driver has to come back on that scale to weigh out again, so that we get the actual net weight in that truck. With the commingled type material, we separate the bottles first, because the bottles are very abrasive. So we have to get those out of the stream before that we can do anything. The bottles come out. We don't separate them by color, just all come out, all mixed colors. Then the next items that come out would be the cans, the tin cans and the aluminum cans. They come out through a series on a conveyor belt. Then we go into the plastic grades where they're optically sorted. In other words, the optical sorter identifies the plastic by the properties in that plastic and separates it into different bunkers. And that's how the process goes. Now, whatever is left at the end of that line is basically trash. We try to go through it. If it looks clean enough, we may go through it again, but if we don't, that material will be landfilled. And those are all objectionable materials that shouldn't be in there to begin with.
So typically when you have a meeting, often someone will bring a box of Joe, or they'll bring in cups of coffee or milk to add to that. So what can we do with all of these things?
Yeah, so definitely coffee is awesome for business. So I drink a lot of coffee, but one thing I try to never do is if I'm at an office, I'm not on the go, why would I get these cups for my office? I would be sure to use like a reusable mug. You can use that a gazillion times and it's fine. Or like when you're having water, use your real water bottle. This is an awesome one. And yeah, so be sure to take those steps to reduce first and reuse those things.
Great. So now, obviously, businesses are recycling as well. So what would we do with these objects? Where would they go recycling-wise? Let's start with the littlest to the biggest.
So yeah, this looks like it's made of plastic. It's definitely made of plastic, but pretty sure it's just trash. Is that right?
Absolutely, throw it in the trash.
And that's really because it's too small.
It's too small to scan, yes, but it's actually plastic and foil mixed together, so it's contaminated.
That's one of the challenges, is this looks like it's a paper cup, and we know this is plastic, but what do you think?
Right, so maybe depending on what plastic and what paper it was, you should separate them into where they're supposed to go. But this paper is lined with some sort of wax or plastic type thing, which means that's garbage, correct?
That's garbage.
Yep, and then this...
We've identified that lid, it's
Yep.
not recyclable.
Not
Throw that
recyclable
in
plastic.
in the trash.
Great. And now, how about the milk? Gray says that he gets a lot of questions about the milk containers.
Right, so yeah, so this looks like paper. We already said that the caps are no good, so that's garbage. But is it paper? It doesn't have anything on it. What can I do with
There's
this?
no symbol on it, number one. And anything that's going to hold any type of liquid has to have some type of liner inside. So this is going to have a wax liner inside of it. So the wax on top of the fiber would not be recyclable.
Great. Okay, so now we have the box of Joe. It looks like it's 90% paper, so what do you think?
Yeah,
Right.
right. When you just recycle it.
You give this a closer look and you see there's a plastic cap on here, okay? So the first thought is, in its form right now, it's not recyclable. But you've got
Yeah.
an idea on that one.
Yeah, the idea is just take a couple seconds from your day and you can just take this right out, this foil thing, this plastic thing. You might have to rip it or something to make it easier, but just take that out, throw it out, and then cardboard's good to go in the recycling.
Right, flatten the cardboard and
Oh,
then put it
flat.
right in the recyclables.
Great. So these are some ideas for you to use while you're at your business. And please ask the people that are in charge of your facility what you can do to help with recycling. Thank you.